Who is it? Ready? Yeah, Ricky's
sick,
here.
Ricky's sick.
Oh, Ricky's sick, okay. We good? Wayne? Ready? Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would everyone please stand for a short prayer and a salute to our flag? Almighty God, grant us the wisdom to make those decisions that are in the best interest of all our residents. May the Heavenly Father of us all bless those who have given the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation, and may He watch over and protect our servicemen and women now guarding the gates of freedom. Salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terry, statement of publication?
Yes, Mayor. Please take notice that this regular meeting of the Mayor and Borough Council being held on this 12th day of March 2018 has been advertised and posted in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan,
Here.
Grillo,
Here.
Kilpatrick. Here. Lembo.
Here.
Melendez. Novak.
Here.
You know, before I start the meeting, I received news today, and it seems that as I get older, I attend more and more wakes of people who are truly liked and who were truly wonderful residents of Sayreville. So I'd ask for a moment of silence for everyone's friend, Frank Woods. Thank you, everyone. Approval of the prior minutes of the mayor and council. Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following minutes of the mayor and council be approved on roll call vote, subject to correction if necessary. The February 26, 2018 council and agenda sessions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? With that, we have sadness tonight, and then we have celebration. So we have promotions in our police department, and with that, I will call the Chief of Police, John Zabrowski, forward, and he will take over the meeting. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. It's my great pleasure to be able to recognize 4 officers tonight for their performance, for their successes, for the opportunity for them to be able to continue to serve our community in now a promoted fashion. Tonight, you're going to meet 4 officers, 2 new lieutenants, and 2 new sergeants. This is not an easy task, getting to these different levels. It takes an awful lot of hard work and dedication to do that, to hone your skills, to improve your abilities. It also takes a lot of dedication from all the family members who are here tonight as well, because when those officers are either studying or working or doing whatever they are, there's a lot of people at home that are taking on the other tasks in order to let those officers do what they do. So we recognize them as well. So it's my great pleasure to, first of all, to thank them and commend them for their great efforts, to thank those family members for doing that, and to celebrate the opportunity for these officers to continue their stewardship for our community. So our first lieutenant tonight is Lieutenant Robert Lasco. I'd ask him to come forward for his oath and his family.
members here.
Big crowd here.
Left hand on the Bible, raise your right, repeat after me, insert your name.
I, Robert Lasko,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties
all the duties
of lieutenant
of lieutenant
of the Saraville Police Department
of the Saraville Police Department
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my
so
ability.
help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
You gotta come this way.
That's right. Oh, got to work my way across. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And then come back up here to sign.
Okay.
Moving target aim.
Sorry, I stepped on a mayor's foot.
But we have two.
Yes.
Should be a little shorter.
Now I'd like to call up Lieutenant Michael Gaines and his family.
And on the Bible, raise your right. And repeat after me, insert your name.
I, Michael Gaines,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties
all the duties
of police lieutenant
of police lieutenant
of the Saraville Police Department
of the Saraville Police Department
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my
so
ability.
help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Michael. Seems like just yesterday, you were sitting at my dining room table with Jennifer, remember? It was yesterday.
Now for our sergeants, Sergeant Steve Maslowski and his family.
Dad. Little man.
Oh, my goodness. On the way. Raise your right, repeat after me, insert your name.
I, Steve Maslowski,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties of police sergeant
all the duties of police sergeant
of the Borough of
of
Saraville
the Borough of Saraville
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability,
So help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I like the picture on Facebook. We're from the Christmas party. His son stole the show. So cute. Oh, get out. Kimmy. That New York accent. I can't break it.
And now Sergeant Brian Braille and his family.
I don't hear it. But my whole family, they didn't lose theirs. I was the baby. You come a little
Scoot on
closer.
over. Come on. There we go. Okay, repeat after me and insert your name.
I, Brian Braille,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties of police sergeant
all the duties of police sergeant
of the Borough of Saraville
of the Borough of Saraville
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my
So
ability.
help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I wish this was full. Yeah. That's it. And that's Ricky's here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Saraville Police Department.
I knew it was coming, it just surprised me.
She next? Ooh, thank God. Are you cold?
You okay? Okay. So they call it Altice now, it's Cablevision.
Okay. Hey, Rich, you do me a favor and get everybody out in the hallway and close the doors, and then we'll continue the meeting. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call Marilyn Davis, the representative of Altice. If you'd come forward, please. Is the microphone there? Right there, if you would, ma'am. If you'd state your name and your company, please.
Hi, good evening, Mayor. My name is Marilyn Davis.
I don't know if it's on, Marilyn.
Okay, is this better?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Marilyn Davis. I'm the Area Director for Government Affairs for Altice USA. We own Optimum.
Okay. Marilyn, we've had a number of subscriber complaints who are also residents of Sayreville that felt it's unfair and unjust that if they discontinue the service at the very beginning of the month, they're charged for the entire month. And we wanted to discuss that with you.
Well, thank you for inviting us to, at least inviting me to come before you tonight to explain some of our
Marilyn, if you would.
to explain some of our policy changes that have been instituted over the couple of last 2 years, I believe. So you're referring to what we call pro rata billing. Pro rata billing is when you cancel your bill before the end of the month and you get billed for the entire month. This is certainly not something that our customers appreciate, but however, the company instituted this policy in 2016, and they gave the customers 60 days notice before it was implemented that this was happening, and it continues to this very day. If customers look at the back of their bill, they will see where it says on the billing services that this is a practice, a policy of the company. Granted, I understand that customers, again, don't appreciate it or don't understand it, possibly, but this is the company's policy.
That may be, but we're in the midst of renegotiation with you. And what happens is the more of our residents that watch this on our access channel, the more people are coming forward with the same or similar issues. And what I'm going to ask you as the mayor of Sayreville is you need to redo this, because to have someone pay for the entire month, I think is unfair, and it's not a good business partner for Sayreville. And I'm sure I'm not the first mayor that has said this to Optimum or to Altice, but timing may be on our side, it may not be on our side. But I'm not one, I don't like to do threats. I like to reach out and partner with the suppliers to the borough, which is what my first attempt is with you. And I would like you to speak to your group of people to see if this can be reestablished on a, when there is a cancellation, whatever the fair amount is, to get a guy out to turn this service off, and to work with our business administrator and our borough attorney to come up with a fair number.
Mayor, if I may, real quick. I
Please.
know a resident a couple weeks ago came up with a state statute as well, if I'd like to,
Dan, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. A resident came up a few weeks ago regarding this issue, and he had mentioned a state statute. I'm just going to ask Mike for his direction with that as well.
Yeah, Ms. Davis, there is a state statute that requires a
Prorate.
proration of bills. And I don't know if the company has looked into that in terms of compliance. I don't know if, in fact, you've been sued on that particular issue. Maybe if you can clarify your opinion as to that state statute and why it doesn't apply to you, that might be helpful.
So the company, in 2016, Altice USA purchased Cablevision, or purchased Optimum from Cablevision. At that time, the company sought a waiver from the Board of Public Utilities on this issue. It was a waiver from the statute on this issue.
When was that issue? When was?
2016.
It's funny, because I'm not quite sure if we got any notice as to the request for the waiver.
So the waiver is not to the borough.
No, I
The waiver is
recognize
to the
that,
Board of
but you
Public
probably,
Utilities.
there probably was notice requirements for the municipalities that participated.
I'm not sure. I wasn't here then. My assumption is that it went to the state, not to the municipality.
Yeah, you know, it might
You
be
still
help.
have to notice us in case anybody has a complaint.
It might be.
I'm not sure of that.
No,
I
no, no,
wasn't-
it
I
might, you
wasn't
know
with
what,
the company
I think
then.
that, I know that you're not in the legal department, but it maybe it would be helpful if you could provide to the borough clerk and borough administrator just a copy of the waiver order, as well as any and all notices that were sent to municipalities, or maybe not any municipalities receiving any notice. I don't know.
Sure. I'll do that.
Sure.
Are there any other comments from the governing body?
The only other question I would have through Mike is, I'm sorry, my only other question would be is if there were notices that were required and they weren't provided, would that then jeopardize their franchise agreement?
I think you have the right to appeal the decision of the waiver.
Okay.
The waiver in of itself, the order that was allegedly entered will outline certain terms and conditions as to has to be complied with. For example, they may have had to notice the waiver, right? They may have had to send out municipalities that they serve a copy of the waiver. I don't remember seeing it. Maybe they had to send it to their customers. I don't know. So until you see the actual waiver and the requirements, you know, you won't know what to do.
But would it be something that's in our franchise agreement?
There potentially could be. Oh, yeah. But that waiver also, I'm sure, pertains to some of the issues that we're dealing with here. So it'll be very interesting to see what Altice and Optimal, you know, had to comply with. Because, you know, they asked for a waiver, and then all these other customers who are sitting, you know, in the background, they're going, well, wait a minute, we didn't know anything about it, right? So, I mean, I'm not here to shoot the messenger. I know that you probably
Totally
don't
understand.
have a copy of that waiver in your back pocket. But I think that if you get to the borough clerk and borough administrator, you know, we could probably explore some of the options that are available to us.
Sure. And just on background, I joined the company in January of 2017 after this policy was instituted. So I'm not familiar with the legalities around the waiver request for the Board of Public Utilities, but I will certainly go back to our legal team and get that for you and provide it to the clerk.
Are there any other questions? Mary, you had a question?
No, I just, you know, regardless of whether, I mean, I've never heard, every time Jersey Central, or any utility wants to do something, they always have to notify the town, and then through us on our website to any of the residents that they, if they have any comments or questions, that a public hearing will be held on such and such a date. But regardless of the legality, I really think that it's bad customer service when somebody, particularly, we've been having people complaining that they called and canceled their service, but because they didn't get their service stopped at the correct time, but they didn't get their boxes returned because the offices were closed, so their boxes were returned 2 days late, and they were still being charged for the month, even though their service had been off. So there's a lot of customer service problems with this
And
also.
I totally understand, and this is not just a telecommunications or a cable industry practice. This practice goes beyond, I mean, gym memberships. It happens with Netflix and other over-the-top programming companies. So I totally understand that.
But Ms. Davis,
No, I just want to say that it's a practice that happens. No one likes the practice, and I totally get that.
two things. You happen to select the worst job in America. The worst being the
Nobody
road.
likes the cable man.
No, it's like worse than a dentist. But the second thing is, when you were selected as the cable provider for the borough, we gave you the rights to our right-of-ways throughout the borough so that you could have I think it's 11, 12,000 customers or more,
Maybe around 12,000, give or take.
12,000, which is not a right, it's a responsibility. And I would ask that you bring that to the people that you work with, that we're looking at this, we're looking for a responsible partner. And that is our expectation of your company, that they be the responsible partner, because we're not a particularly, our wealth is in our people, not in our bank accounts. So everybody works hard here, and we're not a frivolous town, but we're a prudent town, and sometimes penurious. But that being said, we do have expectations when we give somebody the right to bring a product into the town, and that is that they conduct themselves accordingly.
Absolutely.
So, are there any other questions from the governing body? Any other comments? Dan?
There's one comment that I want to respond to. I think there was a council member who mentioned that he was being charged for modem. Is modem?
No, I have two residents here. So I'm gonna ask, if you will, they're both gentlemen, right, fellas? Yes, okay. If you would leave the mic on the podium, and then if you would step to the side, I'll ask them to come up separately. They're both, one is a retired police captain, the other is a soon-to-be retired traffic sergeant. So, Bill Gavin, if you'd come up, please. Bill, what I'm going to ask you to do is state your comment or your experience. I don't want to get into open dialogue. It's not the proper forum for that. You and Sergeant Barlinski.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the council and to Dan for bringing Optimum here. Obviously, I don't believe what Optimum just told you, because when I spoke to the Board of Public Utilities, they're the ones who pointed out that the law was in effect. So if there was a waiver for such a law, and the public utilities had that waiver in front of them, they obviously would have told me that there is nothing you can do about your bill, and that Optimum shouldn't have to prorate it. So that obviously, that waiver that they're claiming they have, I don't think exists. And I would ask that the council bring Optimum back in 2 weeks with that waiver in hand if they so have it. But I would doubt that that waiver does exist. The other thing, and I'm sorry to hear about Frank Woods, because I was going to bring him up tonight. You know, Frank Woods and his wife Patty of the Parlin section, and Carolyn McGrath of Raritan, had an article written in NJ.com for the Bamboozle section. As soon as that article was written, it's amazing how Optimum called it both parties and prorated their bill. So if it's the company policy that you don't prorate a bill, then I would ask, why did they do it for Frank Woods and his wife Patty, or Carolyn McGrath of Raritan? So I think that's pretty interesting. Also, I canceled my service on January 15th, which obviously was Martin Luther King Day, so I couldn't even bring my equipment to the office. So if they want to have such a strict policy, then maybe they should be open 365 days a year in the Parlin office, so that residents can return their equipment regardless of what time of, you know, whether it's a holiday, not holiday, or whatever, if they're going to have such a strict policy. Now, I understand that, you know, and I thank Dan for bringing up about the statute, but I also don't get other utilities. We have Jersey Central Power and Light. They're a utility. They don't require me to pay for electric that I don't use. We have Public Service Electric and Gas. They deliver gas to my home. They don't require me to pay for gas that I don't consume. Yet Optimum insists that I pay for cable service that I didn't receive. And they want me to pay over $170-some for a service that I canceled. I think that borders on extortion. I mean, if you read the extortion statute verbatim, it says that if you're going to extort somebody, by threatening to ruin their credit, which Optimum will be doing. They're already calling me saying that I owe them the money and they're going to send me to collection, so my credit will be hurt. I mean, this is nothing short of extortion from the company to say to the residents, either you pay us for something that you're not getting, you're not using, or we're going to ruin your credit rating. So I'd like to see them come back, produce the waiver, or be mandated to prorate every resident's bill. If not, I think we should open it up for the borough to bid other subscribers here. And let's not make Optimum our cable provider any longer. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. John?
Mayor, Council, good evening. John Bartlinski, 5 Grant Street, Morgan Section. One thing, Bill, I didn't get to tell you this before. I spent quite a bit of time on the phone today with the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, a gentleman named Larry, and of course no one wants to give a last name. The first thing he did tell me was Altice did in fact ask for a waiver. But the only waiver they asked for was for something that they did not have to put in bold writing on a bill that goes out. He told me they are in direct violation, that Altice is more than aware that they're in direct violation of this statute, and it's presently in the Attorney General's hands. He also advised me that New York State right now is in the middle of a class action lawsuit against Altice for these same business practices. In my case, I called and canceled on February 1st. And the reason why I had to call and cancel on February 1st because there was a problem. I'm not sure if it was with Verizon, whether it was with Optimum, or between the two on what they call the porting of the phone number for my DJ line. When I called on February 1st to cancel it, Optimum then told me, well, due to the fact that it's the first day of the billing cycle, I must pay for the full month. The first was a Thursday. I worked Friday. Monday I was off. I took all my equipment back to the Optimum office. I could not watch their TV if I wanted to. I couldn't use their phone service because I already had it back through Verizon. So like Bill said, yes, I'm paying for something that I do not have. Optimum has since sent me 2 bills. What I did do when I received the first bill was I divided my $285 and change bill for the month of February into 28 days. And although I canceled on February 1st, I paid them for 2 days. Now, I got one bill about 3 days after and another bill now telling me I still owe them. They credited me for something. I believe it was because there was channels we did not have. But they said I still owe like $230 some, and if they do not get it, that I will be going to collections on it. Also in the article that Bill mentioned, the bamboozled article on NewJersey.com, at that time I cannot find out if she's still working for Altice or not. There was a Lindsay Angelotti. Is she still there? Okay. Well, she was the one who handled these cases on the Woods family from Sayreville, as well as the woman from Raritan. And she handled it, and it was straightened out, and these people did not have to pay. Now, again, that New Jersey Administrative Code in 14 does clearly state that they must prorate your bill. And saying other people don't do it, Verizon does it, Comcast does it, DirecTV does it, the power company does it, the gas company does it, because I checked with all of them. So I do hope this can get straightened out. I really don't want to have to be part of a getting my credit ruined because I'm not paying a bill, and I really have no desire to be involved in another class action lawsuit from New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Mayor. John, rather.
John.
Okay, were there any other customers, Fred?
Fred Block, 25 Calliope. So I wasn't really going to bring this up because I felt like I had no choice in the whole matter, but I'm going to since the opportunity arose here. Last year, I was having a lot of problems with the internet connection at my house, and we use it for a lot of things in the house, for the family, for homework and everything, so it's important that it works. And it was cutting out intermittently. I couldn't get anybody to acknowledge a problem, so they suggested that we do a dispatch to our house. So, of course, the whole morning that the guy was scheduled to come, I had no problems. So they told me on the phone that the only way they would dispatch is if I agreed that if they found no problem and it wasn't their fault, that I would have to pay for the dispatch. So I had no choice. Like, if I didn't agree to that, they wouldn't come to my house. So what am I supposed to do? I need it to work. So that's the first part of a great word that was used tonight, extortion. I'm being held over the fire. If I don't agree to the charge, I don't get them to come out. So so on the day they're going to come out, and I work in telecom, it was not having a problem. So the guy calls me and says, I'm leaving my last job. I'm on my way to your house. Just wanted to let you know I should be there in about 45 minutes. I tell him, I'm not having a problem right now. He says, do you want to cancel? I says, well, I'd like to avoid being charged since there's no issue right now. He says, okay, no problem, I'm canceling. So I think that that's the end of it. Well, imagine my surprise when there's a $75 charge on my bill for the dispatch. So I'm telling the guy I want to cancel the dispatch so I don't get billed. He says to his supervisor, which I found out later, that he specifically said, canceled by the customer, I was en route to bill the customer. But it gets better. So I, of course, call, and everybody knows me for my ability to be vocal. I call, and I'm giving them the runaround. I want a manager. I get a manager on the phone or supervisor who refuses to do anything for me at all. I insist on a call back from a manager. Manager calls me back, leaves a message. That was the worst thing. Because really after that, I never heard from him, couldn't get anything. Finally calls back and says there's nothing they're going to be able to do, that the technician said that I canceled within a 1 hour time frame window prior to the dispatch time, and that per their policies, I have to pay for the dispatch because I canceled it. And I insisted that had I known I was going to be billed for the dispatch, I would have let the guy come. If you're telling me that you're going to bill me anyway, well, then come and have a look at it. Do whatever you got to do. I would have taken advantage of it. But I wasn't given that opportunity. So in the end, I was basically told that if I didn't pay the $75, I was trying to tell them that I was only going to continue to pay my regular bill. They said that if you do not pay the $75 charge, your bill will keep going up due to a late fee because you're not covering your cost. And at that point, I felt I had no power at all, and I paid the bill. So if that's the way we want to do business with our town, I say we look for a different cable company. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, Mayor,
Yeah.
to comment. Ms. Davis, thank you, and yes, I want to echo the mayor. We don't want to shoot the messenger. I think it's great that these folks came out tonight to talk about what to a $50 billion company, I'm sorry, $16 billion company, 50 million customers. These are small things, but I guess that's how you become a giant company, by nickel and diming our residents, unfortunately. And so what I think is very, very important is that, yes, you are a public utility, but you're treated differently than an electric company, than a gas company, and that difference is that we can competitively bid this out. And so as my colleagues have said tonight, I think that if there is no resolution, and if we don't find satisfaction, we owe it to the residents of this community to certainly think about your competitor. And we don't want to extort you in this negotiation, but it is important that you understand that $50 or $75 or $200 is a lot of money to a resident. It's not to a giant multinational corporation, but it reflects, and of course, you're just like us, right? You pay the same cable bills as everybody else. But these folks are telling a really good story about what goes wrong when policies go wrong, when something's made in a boardroom and they don't think about the real effects. So I appreciate you coming out tonight. I appreciate the residents saying what they did, but please take this with serious caution, because I know that my colleagues and I are very serious about the potential change to another provider. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
Mike, will you stay on top of this to get a copy of this waiver?
Yep.
Thank you.
Plus, I'll call the Attorney General's office.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Ken Olszewski, 108 North Edward Street. I don't know of too many people that haven't had problems with the cable companies, the present one, the former ones. As a matter of fact, in the years that I was on the governing body, probably somewhere around 1990 or 91, I, along with one other, I can't remember which one, council member, pushed and established the cable board in Sayreville. I don't know what happened to that. Probably they got frustrated that they couldn't get anything done. It seemed to have been effective for a while with some of the problems we've had. But I could tell you about the same problems these people are talking about. The arrogance. They operate like a totalitarian government does. It's like, we are the big people, you are nothing. The gentleman just before me, and I'm sorry, I just walked in a little while ago, I talked about them not calling him back. I can tell you the same stories. Call them, they never call you back. You ask for a supervisor, he's lucky somebody called him back. Times I've ever called him, you never got anybody to call you back. So I'm sure you've heard the people talking before me, but I want to bring up what I did at the last meeting, and you did, Mayor, as a matter of fact. They're enablers. There's always an enabler involved with somebody like this. There's always an enabler. And the enabler here are the people who regulate the cable company. And that's the Office of Cable TV and through the state legislature. And I think this governing body should do a resolution to the legislature and asking them to get involved in this, because they are enablers to let this happen. We just don't want to see these people walk in from Trenton as another pretty face to shake hands when there's a party or something going on, or New Year's. We want to be advocate for the people and do something for us, for the little guy. You know, you read the stories, they're always doing for somebody, whether it's in Washington or Trenton, but rarely does it get down to the fact they're doing for us. Let's get the governing body behind us, because individually, there's a lot less we can do. And I would recommend a resolution to Trenton, to our legislators, advising them of these problems and asking them what they're going to do about them, and look at them and put adequate controls in that will protect the residents of Sayreville in this whole matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with comments about Cablevision? Okay, thank you. Ms. Walsh, if you would, we'll be in contact with you, and I thank you for coming out, and let's try to get this resolved. Jessica, if you would, please. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Terry, next order of business?
Mayor, we have public hearing on the following ordinances. Ordinance number 399-18, an ordinance amending Chapter 5, Police Regulations, basketball hoops of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Sayreville.
At this time, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on this ordinance. Are there any questions or comments? This ordinance basically says between, I think, October and April, you can't have the portable basketball hoops on the street. It adversely affects the snow plowing. So we enacted the ordinance so that when we come and ask you to put it in your driveway, and someone says, is there a law? We'll say, yes, there is a law now. So, Bill?
One question about the ordinance. The only concern that I may have is that this ordinance now specifies these specific dates. So if we're outside those dates and somebody has a basketball hoop on the street that's causing a traffic problem, does this prohibit the police from going down there and telling them to move it? Because the person who has it in the street is going to turn around and say, wait a minute, the ordinance says I could have it in the street for the other 10 months of the year.
I think the first thing we needed to do, Bill, was to address the impediment to snow plowing. So this is step one.
Okay, I agree with that. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just wondering if this is going to cause a problem down the road with a resident saying, well, we could have it in the street. in the
Without
summer.
question, it's going to cause a problem, and then we'll deal with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And here's a copy of that article from Bamboozle.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on this ordinance? Being no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
That's me, right? You said. I move the public hearing be closed and the ordinance adopted on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Buchanan. Grillo.
Yes.
Lembo. Novak.
Yes.
Okay, Terry, is anybody making appointments tonight?
There are some. Terry, I just have one question. Wasn't this on for first reading at the last meeting, and we pulled it? So shouldn't this be first reading again?
It was on for first reading last meeting.
And we pulled it, didn't we? We
No,
didn't?
and we reintroduced. I had the new one prepared at the same meeting, at the
Okay,
last meeting.
gotcha.
Yeah, we
I'm
pulled it, the old
sorry.
one, introduced the new one.
Okay,
Mhm.
yep.
You have appointments to make, Vicki? We can do it later on in
Yeah,
the
do it
meeting if
later
it's more, sure. Absolutely. Terry, if you would, next order of business?
Introduction of the following ordinances. Ordinance number 400-18, an ordinance supplementing and amending ordinance 258-14, fixing the salaries of certain borough officials, officers, and employees for the years 2013, 14, 15, and 16.
Mayor, I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, and a public hearing to be held on March 26, 2018.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Buchanan.
Yes.
Grillo.
Yes.
Kilpatrick.
Yes.
Lembo. Novak.
Yes.
Next item?
Introduction of ordinance 401-18, an ordinance authorizing the acceptance of a traffic signal at the intersection of White Oaks Drive and Main Street in the borough of Saraville, County, Middlesex, State of New Jersey.
Is this you, Vicki?
I don't believe so.
Or Dan? Who's
I'll
public
take it.
safety?
I'll
Public
take it.
safety.
Mayor, I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, and a public hearing to be held on March 26, 2018.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Buchanan.
Yes.
Grillo.
Yes.
Kilpatrick.
Yes.
Lembo. Novak.
Yes.
Introduction of ordinance number 402-18, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 17 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Saraville to add Section 17-4, municipal boat launching facilities.
Mayor, I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, and a public hearing to be held on March 26, 2018.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Buchanan.
Yes.
Grillo.
Yes.
Kilpatrick.
Yes.
Lembo. Novak.
Yes.
Introduction of ordinance 403-18, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 2 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Saraville to amend Section 2-15.5 fees.
Councilwoman Novak?
Yeah, I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law for public hearing to be held on March 26th or Valentine.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Novak.
Yes.
Buchanan. Grillo.
Yes.
Kilpatrick.
Yes.
Lembo.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comment on consent agenda resolution items only. Are there any questions or comments? There being no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion. Council President?
Resolutions.
Consent agenda resolution.
Close the public hearing and adopt.
I move the public hearing be closed and the consent agenda resolutions be approved on roll call vote.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Kilpatrick.
Yes.
Buchanan.
Yes.
Grillo.
Yes.
Lembo. Novak.
Yes.
Is there anything for executive session? Okay, at this time, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on any and all issues. Just so everyone understands, we're going to try our best to have a 5-minute limit. Last week, we went pretty late, so the consensus is, let's see if each person can do it in 5 minutes. That being said, are there questions or comments on any and all issues tonight? Janet, did you come on up?
I'm looking for an update. Oh, Janice Benedetto, 1 Thomas Avenue, Melrose section, sorry. And I'm looking for an update on the appraisals on the Cross Avenue National Lead property.
Dan?
Spoke to Joe Cups from the tax assessor's office, who made calls both on Thursday, Friday, and today. We are not having them. They're not in yet, and we probably won't have them. His best guess would be the end of next week, end of this week, beginning of next week.
I appreciate that a diligent effort to find out when we're expecting them, and hopefully that'll really be the case so that that information would be available and useful to our legal counsel in the COA litigation that is coming up. And I wanted to thank everybody with the information that was provided at the 6 p.m. meeting as to the status and the date changes with the COA litigation, with the legal action that is now going to be changed from March 16th to the date now is March 28th at 11:30 a.m. in it's Judge Natale, right? Judge Natale's chambers, and it is a session that can be attended by the public, though I understand the public can't speak, but they can attend to see what's going on, and that that's oral arguments, and that on April 9th, there'll be an oral decision by Judge Natale in his chambers at 2:30 in the afternoon at the courthouse in New Brunswick. So I thank you for that information. And I know you had your executive session. I don't know if there's anything that the public can know about that. I understand the restrictions with strategy as to litigation, but I thought there might be something that the public could know at this point in time.
No, there's nothing at this point in time. There's just, as I said, as you probably announced already, the responsive papers have been pushed back for our responsive papers until March 22nd, and I think you covered all the other issues.
I left out that date. So thank you very much for filling that in. I greatly appreciate it. In this way, via the YouTube version of this meeting and the Channel 15 cable version of this meeting, the residents know what's going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. Are there any other questions? Ken?
Once again, Ken Olszewski, 108 North Edward. We have been having some ongoing discussions here about the members of the planning board who sat there for a year and were not appointed. And I think at the last meeting, the councilor said that we might have an answer at this meeting on what the outcome of what we're going to do about that.
Well, you know, I have had the opportunity to speak to DCA today. I spoke to Ms. McNamara. Ms. McNamara did kind of confirm what I held in my initial opinion, and that is the term begins when the term begins, if I can, right? It doesn't begin upon appointment. Ms. McNamara, who is in the ethics unit, was going to check some additional sources. I told her I'd give her a holler, you know, in a bit and see if there's any further information. I do know that I have to be down in Trenton, I think, the end of this week or the beginning of next week, and so I was going to go knock on the door of Ms. McNamara and see if there's any further information she has for me.
Thank you, and I couldn't agree more. In my opinion, the term begins when the term begins. So if you sat there for a year illegally, that doesn't change your term of office. You sat there a year on at a term where you were never appointed. I can't imagine that anybody could come to any different conclusion other than perhaps it seemed that our planning board attorney did. But then again, they came to some conclusions that I don't think too many people in the borough agreed with. I want to change the subject, and I want to talk a little bit about some complimentary things that happened in the borough. I attended the last Board of Adjustment meeting, and one of the items on the agenda was an application for up to 2,400 trailers and containers to be located on Journey Mill Road, south of the Viking Terminal, and not too far from the, across the street from, on the westerly side, across the street from the condos. Help me out, what's the name of those condos on Journey Mill Road?
Colony Club?
Colony Club, right, right. Well, it was very interesting. I couldn't get there for the first hearing, which was, and I wasn't concerned about it, was the Wawa, where the former Peter Pank was. And I walked in about a half an hour late, and people were leaving. And I thought the room would be full of people. Well, much to my surprise, it was Jim Robinson over on this side, me sitting here, Barbara Kill Cummins and Eddie Streck in the back with a gentleman who, I'm sorry, I don't know his name, and Donna Roschler. That was the room. And that was a scary feeling, let me tell you, with something as significant as this, that nobody else was in the room. I can't imagine that some residents of Colony Club would have been there if, in fact, they had known about it. And I know we're fulfilling our legal obligation to advertise it, etc. But I think the days of advertising in the home news and whatnot, that's about as good as advertising in the San Francisco Examiner, because people don't read the newspapers anymore. I mean, we really should get into a system that really notifies people. They say half the people get information today from Facebook. I don't know, but I'm just telling you, that was a scary situation. And for anybody that doesn't know what they were attempting to do here, if you go down Bordentown Avenue, south past Dave Samuels and Jay Cornell's office, and look on the left-hand side on the easterly side of Bordentown Avenue. It was the same outfit that wanted to put these 2,400 units in here. I have no idea how many are there. I know some of you have seen this, but many people haven't. But they're stacked up 7 and 8 high. And when I spoke, I talked about the dictionary definition of ugly. And this is one ugly mess. And somebody on the board had asked great questions. I'll address that in a minute. But somebody on the board said they're moving out of Perth Amboy. They said, why are you getting out of Perth Amboy? And the answer was, oh, well, they want ratables in Perth Amboy. So, of course, the rest of that implication was, well, let's move to Saraville. They'll take all the crap. And obviously, the 2,400 units are going to give us, they're portable. So you're not going to get any ratables out of them. But that was the question was asked. Later on, when Jim got up and asked about ratables, and the attorney said, well, no, this is a land use hearing, and you can't talk about ratables. When I spoke about it, I said, well, it was brought up by the superintendent who's supposed to run this place. But it's the same operation with the same ugly mess. And I used the only way I could describe the effect on the residents of Saraville was with a quick limerick that says something like, at beauty you are not a star, there are others much better by far, but your face I don't mind it because I stand behind it. It's the people in front that you jar. Well, the people in front of this mess in Old Bridge, guess where they're from? They're all Saraville people. They live on Deborah Street, they live on Vernon Street, they live on Sophie Street, they go down to the flower shop, garden center, etc., all along Bordentown Avenue, and the people that commute in that direction. They're the people that face this, and that's what they wanted to put here. Well, the good news, pretty much everybody spoke there, and thanks to Ed Streck and Barbara Kill Cummins, Jim Robinson, they all had great comments, and great news is the board turned it down. So when we talk about some of the problems we've had with boards and the planning board, et cetera, I have to tell you, the people of Saraville should have seen that and look for it on TV. Maybe you can watch it because it's been broadcast. But it's a real compliment to the Board of Adjustment and Chairman Ron Green and Phil Emmett did an outstanding job, and the other members that are on there, Tony Esposito, Maria Catala, et cetera, the rest of them. They did an outstanding job. And the question I ask about, Jim was sitting over here, and when they took a 5-minute break, we looked at the plans. And then Jim came by me, and he had a bunch of questions. I assume that were written down, and I said to him, "What is that, Jim?" Because they were scratched off. He said, "I think everybody knows that Jim Robinson probably forgot more about land use than any of us would ever know." He said, "Well, they were the questions that I was going to ask, but the board beat me to it. They asked those questions." So I want to say something good did happen in Sayreville. I compliment the board. They did an outstanding job. And I know it complies with the law, but I think this governing body ought to look at how we can do something to help notify residents of Sayreville, something out of the box. And it's time, again, I want to talk about the legislature. That law of how we inform the public is obsolete. It's way, way obsolete. It's a law that was good years ago. I've leaned over here when things came up on the governing body, leaned over to people and said, when I was on the council, this would have been on the front page of the Home News and the News Tribune, and you know what? Now nobody will ever know about it. So it's changing times. We need to change with the times, but it is a real credit, and it's a credit to you people who put those people on that board. They did an outstanding job. Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Mayor, can I just make one quick
Yep.
comment? I know there's other municipalities that I think through ordinances actually put a sign up that says there's going to be a planning board hearing or a zoning board hearing on the piece of property. The sign is not a little sign, it's a pretty large sign. It might be for the cost of the applicant to do something like that, but at least people driving by the site, that might be something that they could see versus something they would see in a newspaper that they don't read. So just a suggestion.
Okay.
One of those portable signs might be a good idea, like the police department has? No?
Yeah, Dan, you're.
This
Okay.
is kind of big,
See,
though,
what
and it's
what
lit
they
up.
do in New York is, once you get your building permit, before you can start construction, there's a waiting period, and then there's a big sign that goes on the property that you can't miss, that gives contact information of the project manager at the buildings department, plus contact information for the contractor, and it stays for the duration.
This is even before the building permit. This is actually for the application itself.
And somebody's before the zoning board trying to get the
Yeah,
zoning to change.
I
It's
think
too
you got to
late.
be a little cautious regarding that because the
law.
the municipal land use law specifically outlines notice requirements.
But we can do something in addition to, my feeling would be, you have to start someplace, and since the majority of people access the web through their phone to various applications, we should put it in a common layperson's language rather than block and lot numbers, what the application is for, the address, and what night that the hearing is going to be. So with the permission of my colleagues, I'll instruct Dan to begin putting together some staff to make that happen. But it has to be in a common language rather than lot and block numbers. It would have to be the address, the approximate area that it's in, on the borough website, under boards and commissions.
We'll see what we can and cannot do. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can
Yeah,
talk about that.
but the thing is, most of the land
Should
use
be.
is identified by lot and block number, and it can get terribly confusing. Ken?
May I just want to compliment, I think you said the magic words. It has to be in something that lay people can understand.
Yes.
Even some of these notices on the TV, and you know, the average person that's going out and going to work to pay his taxes, they don't understand this lingo that we might who come into council meetings and you people that sit there. So they're the magic words. Thank you.
Right. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Janet?
Janice Benedetto, 1 Thomas Avenue, and I forgot to bring up one thing that caused a lot of discussion at the last meeting regarding school safety and participation of the police department and subject matter regarding the Florida shootings and past safety issues in other parts of the country. So I wanted to know where we stood with all of that.
I have had some conversations roundabout with the Board of Education, and it was brought to my attention that even the board members are unaware, deliberately and purposely, kept unaware of all the safety precautions that are in place, so that the element of being proactive is on the side of the students. We haven't yet received a proposal from the Board of Education, but when I did speak to the Chief of Police on the 12th of February, when that tragedy struck in Florida, I was told that they had been planning and implementing the plan for a very long time, and that the schools were extraordinarily secure. And I was very pleased to actually hear from board members that even they are kept at arm's length as to all the security procedures that have been put in place, because, as I said in World War II, you know, loose lips sink ships, and if a kid is disturbed and in pain, they're incredibly perceptive. And as innocently as it may sound, it may be one mother or talking to another, or one father talking to another father, trying to calm their fears, and they tell them the security measures, and it's no longer a secure method. So they are extraordinarily proactive, and they have done a superb job. They have been informed that we are here to work with them, but they are the lead agency on it, and we're waiting. We're essentially waiting for them to dictate to us what assets they may need our help with. But they are constantly working with the borough police, constantly.
Well, then I would suggest that possibly from a non-professional's point of view, that their measures be tested in some random way occasionally, like you have fire drills and there's safety drills. I also think there should be tests done to see how easy it is to access a building.
They're done.
How easy it
They are
is
done.
and things of that sort.
They are done.
I'll interject for 2 seconds just to say that, you know, that was a very good discussion that we had at our last council meeting. The Board of Education has been extremely proactive. Right after that council meeting, I think a couple of days later, they did have a school security meeting, and they already have a committee in place with that, and they do meet with our chief of police and with other, you know, individuals right on down to our fire, EMS. They're extremely proactive, and they're looking at, I think, every possible means available to them, as most school districts are at this point, in order to gain more funding and be able to do what they can in order to secure the schools even more than what they already do. If you remember, the discussion that was up here was I was looking to see if we can gain another officer on our police force. That's led to other discussions as well, differences between Class 3 and SROs. And as I had said, that's the Board of Education's decision. I do believe that they are in talks and in discussions with how they want to address it. In reference to, you know, drills and so forth, I can tell you they absolutely do that. And we're told model schools when it comes to how well we do things.
I'm
And
talking
that's-
about something maybe not even like lockdowns of classrooms and things of that sort, but seeing how easy it is for somebody to gain access to the building.
Mayor, if I may, I met with the command staff back in January when I first was put on public safety, and they do both announced and unannounced testing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
and they have.
reassuring. Another thing, I guess it's going to come up at some other point when you discuss the budget then, an update on where it stands as far as police officers in relation to the budget. Is that coming in the second, the agenda meeting, discussions on the budget and whether there was a budget allocation for more police officers of whatever classification?
The way the budget stands right now is with the 3 hirings in April, it'll bring the force to 92.
But that's going to replace a lot of retired people that are coming due.
That should take us through all of the retirements through the end of the year. If we get any more retirements, we'll be looking at another academy in August.
One of the things that I would like to look at is, we know that our town continues to grow, clearly, that we are going to need to really look at our police force, as well as our DPW force, as well as our other services, if they can actually handle the increases that we so quickly have. One of the things that I would like to institute, when you deal with a budget, not just looking at necessarily dollars and some of the things that we have, but looking at something a little bit more projected, like a 5-year or a 10-year or a 15-year plan of how we can build staffing when it comes to our police and DPW and other agencies, to make sure that we can accommodate the type of growth that Saraville is going to encounter within the next 10 or 15 years. I'm gonna actually state something that the Board of Education did. The Board of Education put in place a Vision 2030 plan. That was a number of years back now. And they look at that. They have a little bit more of a projected outlook of the things they want to accomplish and how they want to do it, and the money that needs to be allocated year after year after year. I think that's a direction that we as a council now need to do. We've been operating under this same budget plan and the way that we prepare it in pretty much the same way. And yes, it does extend out a couple of years, but I think that we need to look a little bit further, because a lot of our plans and our developments here in town are going to push us past what we project within our budget. I think we might need to take a look at a different way of operating. And I think that, you know, Board of Education's done a good job in some respects with handling the way that they do things. I think we can maybe take a little bit of a lesson and project out a little bit further. And that's what I would like to see happen. It was very hard for me to sit up here last meeting, because as hard as I was pushing for that one extra officer, and yes, in my mind, I knew we can't provide the Board of Education, if they so chose to go in the direction of an SRO, which is different than a Class 3, we can't provide that for them. We can't even give them that option. So they had to be very creative, and I think they're working very, very well with the chief to come up with ways to do additional security measures that they already have. It's frustrating for me, and you feel like you're kind of handcuffed when you say, I wish I could provide that for our school and for that governing body to have more than one option on the table. But we can't. I know that. That was a reality. So, you know, to push for one more officer today, to push for one more officer next year or 2 more, we really need to push our limits with what we can really do and prioritize exactly what we value in this town.
Thank you, Council
Thank you.
President. Anything else, Jenna?
Well, I agree with what you're saying about projecting ahead, because you're looking about changing the town in so many different ways with things like the Riverton project, with the COA obligations. And I understand there's a budget cap each year where you're only allowed to raise the taxes a certain amount. And a lot of the construction that's going to go on and the increase in population that's going to take place, I don't know how much it's going to bring in real estate tax revenue or ratables, as opposed to tax abatements and special programs where there's no increase in real estate tax revenue, and yet the services are going to have to be provided. And if we don't plan ahead, we're going to be caught short, and somebody is going to suffer in the meantime. So I greatly appreciate the fact that, you know, the Board of Ed has done it, and I do agree that the mayor and the town council needs to look at it in conjunction with all of these other plans. Now, in the resolutions that you just passed, now there's a Mount Laurel subcommittee as opposed to the COA committee that Councilman Grillo had an ordinance that was being discussed over the last few meetings. And I don't know what the difference between the 2 committees is going to be, and I don't know where each one would go into long-range planning like that, or if it's just a function of the mayor and the governing body here at council meetings, instead to look at a 1-year plan, 2-year plan, 5-year plan for what is necessary as far as budgeting, what the anticipated real estate taxes are going to produce as far as revenue, and what the costs associated with all of this development and building and all of these plans are going to be. But there really needs to be some coordination and some planning ahead, or else we're really going to get caught short, and somebody is going to suffer for it in the long run in the future.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? That being said, I'll take a
Mayor.
motion to close the public
No,
portion.
no, no.
Oh,
Ruth.
yes, Ruth Ann?
Ruth Ann Mahoney, 2 Gerard Place in Parlin. As regard to the school drills, I worked for the Board of Ed for a few years. It's a few years now. But at that time, before so many of these things were happening, they did do drills all the way down to the preschool. I was involved with those. And I've also witnessed different ones at the high school. So they have been for many, many years aware and I think doing a good job. Just kind of, they have been and they're aware. So I think you should feel good about that.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. Are there any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Move the public portion be closed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Janet, just so you know, tomorrow night at the Senior Center, doors open at 5:30. The developers of the Riverton project are going to be there making their proposals, and everyone is invited. I know there are many, many people that have an awful lot of questions, and we certainly would be remiss if we didn't say, please come out. It is our town, and this is probably a once-in-a-century happening where we are going to be reinvented. We will move from a manufacturing town on the coast to, let's find out what we're moving to. Tomorrow night, 5:30, the formal presentation begins at 6:30. My understanding is there will be snacks and beverages and Serval's version of cocktails and canopies. So everyone is invited, so please come out.
Mayor, appointments before we close.
Go ahead, Vic.
All right, so I'd like to make the following appointments. Anthony Esposito to the Rec Advisory Board.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item.
Cecilia Dunn to the Cultural Arts Committee. She's already a current member.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item.
And last, we have a Christian, and I know I'm going to really not do this name proper justice, Anahoa?
Close enough.
There we go.
Is there a second?
Well, let me
Wait a minute.
appoint him to the Rec Advisory Board, replacing George Diffin as the boat member.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else, Council President?
That will be all. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to adjourn for 5 minutes and then start up again on the workshop portion.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Sure, Mr. DuPont, anything you need. Sure, Mr. DuPont. Crybabies.
I kind of take, it's like it's purple or pink.
This is better than this, you know, but
We haven't figured that one out yet. I heard the kid in the back doesn't want to do it again. I heard the kid in the back doesn't want to do it again. Not this year. The other one poorly. Honestly, I think he's looking to figure it out.
There's no hard feelings, but you know, the nice thing is it's possible. You know, most kids, people in the community.
What's the other guy doing?
But you want to live here, you literally 10 people. You know, and that's smart plan. That's incentive for the developer to work in his product. It's small business that change the world. But it gets you 5 more close to your 18. And that's another to conservatize that we keep hitting on the bank. You know, because you know it's going to happen over and over and over. I guess it's more than everyone else. So if you rezone 25, do these events, all of a sudden you say, you know,
Yeah. It's nice. I was here for a 5:15 public safety meeting.
I'm anticipating, you know, a storm. That's why I wore my corduroy suit. Check out the socks. They match the
You know what that looks like? Remember the Wizard of Oz?
to dress
When
like
a house landed on
That's the biggest problem we have.
Yeah, those were her stuff.
Do they have the authority?
You got style.
Hey, trying to get you guys a little more exciting. The sock game is
Recycling Commission?
They talked about it a few years back, actually. Do it and have all the problematic. But the problem is that they're
Who are we missing?
struggle.
Dan. It's just Dan.
Maintain the building. To an extent, we do some upgrade time, help them out again, because they're armed with us, and somewhat. We do give them some subsidies, but
Dan, Mike, we're going to start up again.
on a check, it's like
Hey, Terry,
$66
hey, Terry.
for the stamp. Yeah, really. So it was like a $2 donation.
Do me a favor, put a box of those pennies. The gel ball, no.
How are they volunteer-wise? They're doing okay. They have 50 workers.
Never seen so much sweeping on that.
I know we don't understand their
No, the blue ones, you know, with the, yeah.
Two-thirds of the town is getting charged.
I'm not hard to get along with.
That's a lot. Because if Morgan is in charge. From Fitamon. He gave me a.
Oh, good.
Thank you again for that. That's all. I'm like, there's no one to be checking all these.
Turculus, that's all.
Was she going to speak?
No, she just listened.
Okay.
How we doing?
With them, see
Yeah,
Did
he's
you
in
want to
charge
speak?
of it.
Yeah, so you gotta see all of the.
Yeah, it's a
follow-ups and
lot
everything,
of-
So that's why he's putting.
Okay.
Ready, Mayor?
We're going to call the agenda portion of the meeting to order. At this time, would everyone please stand for a salute to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terry, statement of publication.
Yes, Mayor, take notice that this agenda session meeting of the Mayor and Borough Council being held on this 12th day of March 2018 has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1979.
Roll call.
1975.
That's a great year.
Councilpersons Buchanan.
Here.
Grillo.
Here.
Kilpatrick. Lembo. Melendez. Novak.
Here.
Okay, under old business, I'm going to call out the ordinance number. If you have a question or a comment, please call out. Ordinance 418, 40118, 40218, 40318. Under committee reports, administration and finance, Councilwoman Novak.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to receive and file the minutes and departmental reports as listed on the agenda under A.
Next item.
Just a second.
Second.
Okay, under B, I'd like approvals for bingo and raffle licenses as listed on the agenda under 1 and 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Next item.
Tax appeals received from the two groups that are listed under C, 1 and 2, be forwarded to the tax council.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Next item.
Yes, I'd like to have it placed on the consent agenda for the next meeting to hire 2 laborers and 1 clerk effective April 1st for the Public Works. These are retirements. The names will be forwarded to Terry.
It's already on your agenda.
Where? Oh, it's on the
okay.
new one?
It's on the new agenda, yes.
okay.
The-
I
Just the
looked at
2
the old
laborers, not the clerk, though. So if you want the clerk added on,
The clerk also, please.
the clerk also?
Okay, anything else, Councilwoman?
Just that the budget will be introduced, and public copies will be made available at the next meeting.
Okay. Planning and zoning, Councilman Lembo.
Thank you, Mayor. Move the following reports be received and filed. The Board of Adjustment minutes of January 24th, Oregon regular meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anything else, Councilman?
Other than that, Mayor, I was going to remind everyone about the meeting tomorrow night, the open house tomorrow night, which you already did. We encourage everyone to come out and have their questions answered.
Good. Anything else,
Other than
Councilman?
that, progress, Mayor.
Thank you. Public safety, Councilman Buchanan.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the following minutes be received and filed. The Board of Health minutes of February 1st, 2018.
Second.
Letter B, coin toss, I'd like to have that approved.
Is there any objection?
Nope.
Next item.
And letter C, correspondence received from Melrose Hose Company Number 1, accepting the resignation of firefighter Sean Morelli, effective February 5th. Accept.
Any objection? Anything else, Councilman?
Mayor, I'm going to go into the recreation since I'm number 2 as well.
Yep.
I'm going to letter B is the Saraville Memorial Post. I'm sorry, let me say that again without running it all together. The Saraville Memorial Post 4699, looking for approval for the 2018 Memorial Day Parade on May 28th, 2018. I'd like to have that approved.
Any objections? Anything else, Councilman?
Yes, under the recreation report, also registration for Mommy and Me is starting to take place, and you can contact the rec department. The Easter egg hunt will be held on Saturday, March 24th, which is the Saturday before our next meeting, at 10 a.m. sharp at the Borough Hall football fields here behind Borough Hall. And the age groups from 1-year-old to 10-year-old. And beginning, it had begun already, March 5th, the bus trips to Yankee Stadium on June 15th versus the Tampa Bay Rays, the July 27th versus Kansas City Royals, and August 17th against the Toronto Blue Jays. All trips are Friday nights and are $95 each, and it's first serve and lower level 129, and it includes tickets to the game, bus, parking, and a tip for the driver. The only thing else I have, and I know Dan had put a report on and on our desk regarding the MCUA I had also spoken to Freeholder Director Rios on this, and when we get to Dan's report, I can go in a little more detail. But other than that, progress.
Thank you.
Dan,
Water,
I'm
sewer.
sorry. What was the date of Easter egg hunt?
The Saturday before, which was the 24th. of
24th,
March.
thank you.
Water, sewer, environmental, Councilman Grillo.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I have no minutes or departmental reports, and I have no committee reports. That is
Progress,
all.
Councilman.
Brevity.
I win. Shortest one tonight.
All right, Public Works, Council President Kilpatrick.
Thank you, Mayor. No committee reports, no departmental reports. We're tied, Steve. Progress.
Thank you. Business Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Request for authorization for an updated resolution setting delinquency penalties for delinquent taxes, setting interest and other penalties.
Next item.
Received Sarah resolution forwarding the Hercules redevelopment plan dated December 13th, 2017 to the Mayor and Council for review, and upon approval, that it be referred to the Planning Board for the same.
Next item.
Excuse me, Mayor, is that the council's direction? Does the council want the Hercules redevelopment plan
I
forwarded to
think we need to take a little more time to review it. I don't think a weekend is enough. That's one of the largest parcels in the borough. So let's not.
I'm not
You're
rushing
not
it,
in
don't get
any-
me wrong, I'm just,
Is Hercules in a rush? Is Ashland in a rush? Come on up, miss. And if you'd state your name and the company you're with.
Sure. My name is Jennifer Phillips Smith. I'm an attorney with Gibbons PC, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Hercules. Just for clarification, at this stage of the redevelopment plan,
Correct.
the next course of action, it would be for the council to introduce an ordinance, then refer it to the planning board for their review to see if it's consistent with the master plan,
Right.
and then have it come back for a public hearing and second reading. I wouldn't say that we are in a rush, but at the same time, this process did start in November of 2016. So it has been ongoing for over a year at this point. There would be an opportunity for the planning board to comment on it, and it would come back to council. So there's still 3 more steps.
I understand, but we just received it Friday. It's one of the founding patriarchal companies of the borough. And it is one of the largest, is it 600 or 400 acres?
It's over 500 acres.
Pretty close.
Pretty close. About 100 of it would be for the existing manufacturing facility, which
Okay.
would remain.
We're not looking to stall you. We're just looking to do what's right by the people of Sayreville. And Ashland is a new corporate resident. There's no issues with them. But we just want more than 3 days.
No, that's absolutely correct. I just wanted to point out that
Correct.
we weren't asking for you to approve anything this
Yeah.
evening. It's just starting the process.
I will make sure, I will give instructions that you come back and you can answer questions as we discuss it.
That'd be great.
All right? Because this is so large, would the council be opposed to a 6 o'clock meeting at our next council
I
date?
think we already have 6 o'clock.
We're
As a matter of fact,
Already booked.
we're starting at 5:30, so.
All right. I'll have Terry try to set it up because it's extraordinarily important to what happens to Sayreville. You
The
are in the
26th is
center
for
of-
the
Right.
ethics.
Yes.
So I think this is more important than ethics. So
No,
that's
the class, the class.
Move the ethics
Not actually
class
ethics.
May not have
to
sounded
another
right,
date,
but-
and in 2 weeks,
meant.
we will go over this. So we're going to start at 5:30,
5:30?
all right?
For the record, I do think ethics is important.
No, it is,
however.
but we take ethics every year, and we have 365 days to forget what we were taught, so.
So we can aid in the discussion. Would you like us to bring our engineer and our redevelopment
If you
consultant?
get too deep, you'll lose us. But you're most certainly welcome to bring whatever staff you think would help explain what it is you're looking to do.
Their presentation at Sarah, and Pat, I'm sure that you can second what I'm going to say, was extremely detailed, very extensive, and you're right, Mayor, it is a very, very important
Yeah.
project, so to have them come in and to do the same type of justice you did in your presentation at Sarah here would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
We can
Okay.
certainly do that. And,
Yeah.
and just I'm sure the residents
You
are
have to
wondering-
speak up there.
I'm sure the residents are wondering, the plan is not for any residential on this site.
Right.
It is
No,
for
we understand
commercial and
that.
industrial
Right.
only.
No, we got it.
Okay, great.
We got it.
Well, thank you. Then we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, next item.
Mayor, under Public Works, Councilwoman Novak, just want to make sure I'm clear on this. Authorization to appoint 2 laborers in Department of Public Works effective April 1st. There is also an appointment that Councilwoman Novak wants for a clerk in Public Works. Yes. I would like that to be May 1st because we have a retirement of the clerk on June 1st, and I would like that to be effective as of May 1st.
Are we stating the names tonight?
No.
No.
Okay.
Wayne had already indicated that we could afford to do it April 1st, because we need to train this person.
That's a 2-month training. It's up to the council.
No, it's an important department.
It's very important, and right now we have 2 individuals who are using some of their time up, so the training is more important now than ever.
The money is available, right, Wayne?
Yes.
To do, okay.
Okay, next item, Dan.
That's it, Mayor.
CFO's report, Wayne Kronowski.
The first item is a transfer resolution, which would be the last one till November, if need be. The second item is, not to read the whole thing, is a requirement that was signed into law in the fall of last year regarding affidavit that needs to be effectuated by the governing body, and we have to send it down to Trenton. The resolution is required before you sign the affidavit. And in regards, it's some EEO requirement. This is going to be required prior, in order to adopt the budget, this is going to be required. They tied this legislation to the adoption of the budget, so it's something that we have to get done before April.
Not the introduction, just the adoption.
Right.
Okay.
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 So in this, like I said, the resolution will be on for.
Is this
for
new,
next
or
week.
is this?
This is new. This is some legislation that was signed by Governor Christie back in the fall.
Okay.
And like I said, it got attached to the budget requirements. So.
Okay. Anything else, Wayne?
No, that's all I have.
Okay, Borough Engineer, Jay Cornell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First item, improvements to Hag Street. You awarded the contract during the first part of the meeting, so no other action is necessary. Second item, the Amboy Bank, the addition they're putting in on Washington Road, they have to extend a sanitary sewer line, so they need a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign on behalf of the borough. So we'd ask that that be listed at your next meeting. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Borough Attorney, Michael Dupont.
Yes, Mayor, this is just in your package, the River Road redevelopment plan for your review, and if it's acceptable, then we'll put it on for resolution to refer to the planning board.
Okay. Is there anything for executive session?
No, sir.
All right, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on any and all issues. There will be a 5-minute limitation. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Fred.
Fred Block, 25 Calliope. Just wanted to thank, I know it's a challenge in town for our road department to keep up with some of the monstrous holes that we have around the borough. I wanted to thank them for their efforts for trying to keep up on it. But I've been asked by a number of people, and I'm wondering myself, does the borough hold any liability for damage done to vehicles by potholes?
Michael?
You know what, there have been a number of cases on that. I haven't seen any liability on it. I know that they have a person has a right to file a torts claim notice, but for torts claim notice is only for personal injury, which is, there's a permanency requirement, so damages, they're not going to be recovering it.
Can anybody comment maybe on, because I'm hearing that the county and the state does have such a program. Does anybody know about that can comment on it?
I don't know. Jay, do you know? Have you ever heard anything like that?
I'm not aware from potholes. I know typically if there's an active construction project and someone has damage, we'll address that, but I don't know about potholes.
I mean, I'll have Dan ask the people at our joint insurance fund what the issue, what whether or not we're liable, or the county or the state.
That's exactly what I'm going for. I'm
Okay.
I'm curious if the borough is liable, obviously, because we don't want that, because it affects.
If you're asking me, the answer is no, we're not liable.
That's the law, the rule, right.
And I know that I know that there's several that are really bad though, and are in many
There's more
cases
than
dangerous.
several, Fred. It was a rough winter for potholes. This is the worst I've seen it in a while.
And now we're looking at potential more snow and more plows and more
That's
ripping
what's
up of the
complicating
patches and.
It's never ending.
Right,
Just-
so.
Just so you know, right now, the two local
Yes,
asphalt companies have shut down for refurbishing. So the guys are actually going all the way to brick and sitting in a line because now everybody is going to brick. And they can only do one load a day because it takes them so long to do it, to get hot asphalt, and then come out and do it. And then, of course, with the weather, they've had to,
And then to
some
have
days they
that-
haven't been able to do it at all because of the weather.
And then to have that fill yanked up with the next storm, it's very frustrating. But yes, that is a
I guess we all just need to have a little bit of patience and watch out for everybody who's trying to duck around them. So,
Yes.
be
I
vigilant.
put Bill Gavrin in charge of controlling the weather tonight. Now that he's back, George, now that he's back at work, he's not going to let it snow tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. Ken?
Ken Olszewski, 108 North Edward. Just a quick question. On this Hercules redevelopment plan, I've asked this question to at least one borough official who did not have the answer, but what is the relationship presently between Ashland Chemical and Hercules? Does Hercules still exist, or is this just used interchangeably, or what?
I'll have the young lady answer that question.
So glad I'm here tonight, because you don't know how many people have asked that question.
And I can certainly get a more formal corporate chart because it is a bit complicated, but my understanding is that Hercules is now a subsidiary of Ashland. Ashland is the parent company. So Hercules does still exist, and I believe that this property is owned by Hercules LLC as a subsidiary of Ashland.
Are there any other questions or comments? Being no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion
I move the
to
public portion be
adjourn.
closed.
All in favor?
Motion
I'll
to adjourn.
entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mayor, before we just do that, could Dan just go over the report real quick that we got from Rich?
Oh, that's correct.
Because, I was driving on the highway on Friday morning, actually, and the odor was very strong.
So after our last council meeting, there have been a few complaints, obviously, about the odor. I met with Rich Fittlemont, who is the executive director of the MCUA, and I told him that we had a lot of complaints. Basically, the report is showing us things that have happened within the plant, that everything from sludge thickening in settling tanks to people not closing the doors. He gave me this report, which I've given to you. He said to me, most likely about 75% of what has been transpiring over, I guess, the past month or two
The aeration.
is human error, meaning that doors being open, overhead doors, cleaning out tanks, but they know about it. They are going to work harder at trying to make things better, and that's the only answer that I got.
On that second.
And the report you have is what I asked for, a report.
And on that second page of that report, it talks about the plant superintendent reporting that the system is presently undergoing maintenance, which cannot be completed until such time that a heating element component is repaired. The new component is expected to be delivered shortly. Presently, the delivery of the heating element is expected on Tuesday, March 13th, and the odor control system will be energized once installed. So, it's definitely take a look at this, read this report. I mean, he turns around and talks about his walking tour of the facility and finding all types of, I think, what was the colorful word that he used here? I'm trying. Unusual operational, procedures. Interesting, but, if this March 13th heating element, is really supposed to do what it's supposed to do, hopefully we'll have some relief. But I think, Dan, we need to continue to monitor this and hold them accountable for the odors that have now been, you know, going through our town, and making sure that they keep up with this.
I know that he's been spoken to by also the freeholder director, which Councilman Buchanan had requested. But my only response is that I can only speak to the executive director and get
Yeah, no.
responses from him of actually what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I agree, but making them have to do maybe periodic reporting to us might not be a bad thing.
I think we're only going to get a periodic report if we smell something, so.
Yeah.
But again, if we smell something, we'll call them up and we'll ask them for a report.
If you smell something, say something.
That's right.
That's,
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Have a pleasant evening.
Good night, Barry. Good night, Steve.
Good night. Good night.
Okay.
Good night, John Boy.
Go ahead.
Thank you.